Okay, so this is a presentation on medieval maps and what they might tell us about what people, medieval Europeans, thought about Africa in the Middle Ages. So you might think about, first of all, why we use maps today, world maps. I would say they give us a sense of the size of the world, maybe where we fit in the world, where we might travel someday, um, or where events in the news are happening. Maps in the Middle Ages had similar uses, although their geographical knowledge was obviously limited. Most maps in the 1200s, called Mappa Mundi, that is, maps of the world, had a similar model. The basic structure was to divide the world into three sections: Asia on the top, Europe there on the left, and Africa down on the right, separated by the Mediterranean Sea and sometimes the Red Sea. The three continents were thought to correspond to the three sons of Noah: Ham, Shem, and Japheth. The ocean surrounds the world, and east is at the top. It's called, here you can see, Oriens, from which we get the word to orient oneself. North was on the left, south on the right, and west is down at the bottom. So as we can tell just by looking at this example, the Ebstorf map from 1250, in the Middle Ages, maps serve more as sort of a visual encyclopedia, right? Covering theology and myth and geography and architecture, biology, climate, secular history, and the history of salvation. This map is similar to several others insofar you have Christ embracing the world. Here you can see his head at the top, his hands are on each side at the north and the south, and his feet are at the bottom or the west of the world. This particular map is the largest. It's made of 30 vellum skins, that is 30 sheep. Jerusalem in the Mappa Mundi, in these maps from the 1200s, is always at the center, or what they call the navel of the world. And here on the Ebstorf map, we have a walled city with the resurrection of Christ. Like I said, at the top of these maps, you usually have Christ, and somewhere close by, the Garden of Eden, which we see here. This section, again, would be Asia on the right, and we see women gathering silk. You see Alexander the Great consulting the oracles of the sun and moon. And here we have also a couple of these strange creatures that we'll find in Africa in just a bit. The gymnosophist, who stares at the sun like your parents always told you not to do, and the cynocephalus. This is my favorite. These are the dog-headed people. Africa is on the right or the south side of the map. There are drawings of unusual creatures, or what were called the monstrous races, meaning marvelous, strange, or unnatural. The idea of the monstrous races came from Roman writers like Herodotus and Pliny the Elder, who described creatures like the Cyapods, who had one huge foot that they would use to protect themselves from the hot sun. They had people with their feet turned backwards, people with large ears that could wrap their ears around their head at night to stay warm, centaurs, that is half human, half beast, people with horses' hooves, etc. So if we look up, this is a copy of the map, it's just more clear, of the Ebstorf map. Here, with the close-up, you can see the pygmy riding a crocodile. You see a centaur, that is half man, half beast. And here you see a sampling of these exotic races that have both physical and cultural differences. We find people who lack noses, or mouths, or tongues, or ears, people who do not use fire. You have four-eyed people who are really good archers because they can see well. You have giants. You have people immune to snake venom, people who fall over and other people who walk on all fours. You have cannibals, people with the heads of dogs, right? People whose lips are so large they can pull them over their heads to provide shade from the sun. And interestingly, although there are a couple figures with sort of darker skin or hair, it's kind of unclear, the map depicts all of the figures in Africa with light skin. The Ebstorf map also depicts a lot of unusual creatures, at least unusual to Europeans. We have apes and camels, crocodiles, dragons, elephants, hyenas, salamanders, satyrs, and a wide range of really terrifying snakes. So the Psalter map from 1265 is another good example of a mappa mundi. Again, you have Christ at the top of the world. Behind him it's blue, and you can see the stars in clusters of 3. He's holding the world in his hand. No, they did not think the world was flat in the Middle Ages. And he's surrounded by angels that are swinging censers, a little close to his head. Jerusalem, again, is at the center, and Rome is right below it. The Red Sea is prominent. You can see there. The ocean surrounds the world, and this map includes islands in the ocean. The 4 winds and the intermediate winds, like north by northwest, are indicated by little faces, and Adam and Eve are just below Christ. And again, you have the major rivers that flow out of paradise, like the Euphrates, Ganges, etc. And at the bottom, there are 2 dragons or wyverns, presumably contained by Christ. Here's a close-up at the top of the map. You can see there where Moses parted the Red Sea, and you can see the tree of knowledge between Adam and Eve. And again on this map, on the right side, we have the strange races of Africa. You can see a kneeling giant or a troglodyte with a club. You can see an archer with 4 eyes, a cyapod with 1 leg who is speaking to someone with a very large lower lip. Below these on the map, you see the Blemii, another one of my favorites, who have no heads but have their faces on their chests, and there's 2 of them there. Below them, you see a man riding an antelope, and then a guy climbing a hill on all 4s, and then you see some cannibals. One appears to be eating a foot. And so what can we conclude from these maps about European views of Africa? Clearly, Europeans saw Africa as exotic and strange. Its people looked different, it was assumed, with either an excess or a lack of something like eyes or legs. Along with their different physical features came different cultural customs. Africa is clearly part of God's creation and included in Christ's embrasure of the world. But the people are depicted as compartmentalized and apart from the known world. And then just to reiterate, they're considered different and other, but not because of the color of their skin. Thanks for listening.